one of the biggest college football games of the 2025 season, certainly the biggest out-of-conference game. You know, it's not Notre Dame at Miami, Texas A&M at Notre Dame, not Michigan at Oklahoma, and it's not LSU at Clemson. It is Texas at Ohio State, week 1 at noon on Fox. And these are two teams who everybody knows met a year ago in the college football playoff, in the semifinal, in the Cotton Bowl. Ohio State made two really big plays in that game to win it, one being Travion Henderson right before the half, taking that screen to the house, and then Jack Sawyer on Ohio State's goal line stand, strip sacking Quinn Ewers, his former roommate at Ohio State when they were freshmen there, and taking that to the house. And these two teams absolutely dominated the 2025 NFL draft. Ohio State, 14 draft picks, Texas, 12. And yet you can look at the overall talent and go, well, they really didn't fall off. And especially for Ohio State, they arguably have the two best players in all of college football in Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs. Texas now with Arch Manning at quarterback. A lot of Texas fans are saying we would have done better last year with Arch at quarterback instead of Quinn. And we're going to get into all that in a second. But before we do, Steve Sarkisian and Ryan Day, two of, if not the two best offensive minds in the game right now. The way that these guys are able to scheme things up, create, and put their guys in advantageous positions, it's second to none. So it's going to be a really, really fun game, especially with two great quarterbacks going into their first year starting for each program. We'll start with the Texas Longhorns, and I did a kind of a walkthrough of their depth chart a while back. You can check that out on the channel somewhere, but we'll sort of be doing something a little bit similar here, but comparing their offense up against the Ohio State defense, and then we'll go around and do the Ohio State offense against the Texas defense, talk about some strengths, weaknesses, areas that, you know, we think that Texas will look to expose, what Ohio State will try to do, etc. So Arch Manning, 6'4", 225 pounds, first year as the full-time starter, third year in college ball. A lot higher ceiling than Quinn Ewers, not just from an arm strength standpoint, but his ability to run the football. Not only is he fast, but he's big, he's physical, he's not easy to get down, and he's a guy who I really do believe could win the Heisman and will be a Heisman finalist when it comes time in December and it gets to award season. I just think he's got all the tools in the bag. It doesn't hurt that he has Eli and Peyton in his corner to get advice from and pick their brains on anything that he may be struggling with. Just a really, really talented player, and with 2 years of getting to watch things happen, learn the playbook, be with Sark, he knows it all. I mean, he's soaked it all up like a sponge, and I don't think he's going to miss a beat, and I think he will be better than Quinn Ewers from day one. The running back room, you know, C.J. Baxter, ACL and LCL tear, missed all of last year, horrible injury. I think a lot of people are forgetting how good of a player he was in 2023. This is a guy who's 6'1", 220 plus pounds, and can move. He is very fast, but he's also very physical. A guy that everyone's a lot more familiar with is Quintravion Wisner. He got a lot of carries last year, splitting with Jaden Blue. And I know they also have Jarrett Gibson in that backfield, but C.J. Baxter and Trey Wisner is a really dynamic duo. Two guys that if you can keep them fresh and keep rotating them and the offensive line's doing its job, I mean, you're just going to wear down defenses and make them exhausted going into that late third and fourth quarter. The receiving room, Ryan Wingo goes into year 2 as a true freshman. He saw a really good amount of snaps, switched from number 5 to number 1. Kid's really, really talented. He's big, he's physical, he's fast, and I know that Sark's going to have a lot drawn up for him this year. DeAndre Moore going into year 3, really solid receiver. He had some really bright moments last year. He had a couple really big plays in the college football playoff, and that's a really good 1-2 tandem for you to have, especially for a first-year starting quarterback in Arch Manning. And then you've got other guys in the room. Jamie French, I know you got Lockett, really deep room, but looking for Wingo and Moore to lead the way there. The tight end room, it's really a two two guys show, Spencer Shannon and Jordan Washington. Shannon going into year 3, Washington going into year 2. Shannon about 6'7", 250. Washington about 6'4", 255. And then the offensive line, both of these teams lost a ton, but just because you lose a bunch of starters doesn't mean you have guys that haven't played, because both Texas and Ohio State have guys that have played significant snaps and have made starts. So Texas loses both offensive tackles in Kelvin Banks and Cam Williams. They lose their center, Jake Majors, and they lose their guard, Hayden Connor. But with that, DJ Campbell's back at right guard. Cole Hudson at center has had a lot of playing time. Trevor Goosby's had starts. He's going to be starting at left tackle. And then you got to start two other guys in there that maybe haven't had as much of experience in Brandon Baker and Nito Umzulu. But I still think this is going to be a really solid unit. Are they going to be as good as a year ago? I don't think so, but that's not to say that they're not going to be one of the top 15, top 10 offensive lines in college football. I think they're going to be really, really solid. And then when we look at the Ohio State defense, there's a lot of talent, but I think the one area of concern is the defensive tackle room, and that's where we'll start. With your two starters in Edric Houston and Caden McDonald, I would feel very confident in their abilities. But after that, it's sort of, is Tywon Malone, is he going to be a guy that really steps up and elevates his play? Who's going to be that third? Who's going to be that fourth D tackle to give those two guys a rest when they need it and still provide us high-quality snaps? So if I were Texas, I would test that early and often by running it up the A-gap, running up the B-gap, seeing how strong that defensive tackle room is, and can they stop you? Can they just straight up stop you from slamming the rock inside? The defensive end room, the edge room, is kind of a mystery box for me. I know that Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry are heading into their fourth years, haven't seen a ton of snaps being stuck behind Jack Sawyer and JTT their entire careers. You also go through the portal and you get Bo Atkinson, a very talented player from North Carolina, a big and physical defensive end. I know Logan George came in from Idaho State, and then CJ Hicks moved from linebacker to that edge room, a guy that provides you with a little bit more speed and sort of a pass rush specialist. First two defensive tackles feel really good about, but as far as the D-line as a whole, a lot of question marks, but I think we'll have a lot of those questions answered pretty early on in that Texas game. The linebacker room, one of the better rooms in the country, to say the least. Sonny Styles is a guy that could have went to the NFL last year, graduated high school a year early to enroll at Ohio State. Big physical linebacker who also has a lot of speed, can get sideline to sideline. And then you pair him up with Arvell Reese, who really came on last year and had some really quality snaps, another big physically imposing linebacker. Those two are going to be flying around and making a lot of plays. So even if Ohio State's defensive line this year isn't able to play at the level it did a year ago, with losing JTT, Jack Sawyer, Tyleik Williams, Ty Hamilton, you've got two linebackers who are going to be able to fight through blocks and make tackles. I think we can say that without a doubt. The secondary, Caleb Downs, one of the best players in the country, probably the best defensive player in the country. He's going to be leading the charge back there. Next to him, it's sort of, is Jalen McClain going to get the start? Is Malik Hartford? I think we'll see a healthy rotation of those two just to keep everyone fresh, to eliminate the possibility of later on in the season someone gets banged up and you have to put someone in who doesn't have as many snaps and they're not really sure where to go here, where to go there. I think we'll see a healthy rotation from those guys. Nickelback, you have Sonny Styles' brother Lorenzo Styles going into, I believe, his fifth year of college football. Played a decent amount of snaps there last year. Pretty solid player, not much to say there. And then at corner, you lose Denzel Burke and Jordan Hancock. Davison Igbinosun is back. He's had a lot of problems with PIs, just grabbing, holding. I think he'll improve a lot on that this year, but I don't expect it to just be, completely gone from his game. He's a physical corner. That's how he likes to play. I think he'll clean up some of those PIs and have a lot less penalties overall this year, but a very, very good leader for that defense and an emotional leader. And then starting opposite side him, Jermaine Matthews, going into a starting role now, saw a good amount of snaps last year, just wasn't able to be a starter, with having Burke and Hancock and Igbinosun, but still saw a healthy amount of snaps. Overall, this defense is really solid. My biggest question mark is the defensive line. Behind the two starting defensive tackles, who's really going to be those third and fourth guys? The defensive line, or the defensive end room, is Bo Atkinson going to be that dude? Is Kenyatta Jackson going to find a new level? And the linebacking room, studs, and the secondary, really, really good. But yeah, if I were Texas on offense, I know you don't want to run Arch Manning into the ground week 1, game 1 of the year, and, God forbid, risk him getting injured. But if I'm Steve Sarkisian and I know I've got Cole Hudson, DJ Campbell, Trevor Gooseby, guys that have played a significant amount of snaps, and we know Ohio State might have some weaknesses up front, run the ball. Run the ball inside. I know he likes to use a lot of motions up front. Maybe he does some traps. Just try to find creative ways to run that ball inside and pick up solid yards. And if they can't stop it, there's no reason to quit. And then if we go over to the Ohio State offense against the Texas defense, I am 99.99% sure that Julian Sayin will be the starting quarterback for Ohio State. That is not a slight at Lincoln Kienholz. I think he is a very talented player. And it's really interesting because Kienholz and Sayin are completely different players. Sayin, smaller, pocket quarterback, very, very accurate. Kienholz, a bigger guy, mobile, is going to lower the shoulder on runs to pick up the tougher yards. I just think Julian Sayin has too much upside for you not to start him. And watching him in the spring game, watching him in high school, his tape, the accuracy that this guy has, his ability to thread the needle over and over and over again, with the receiving core that you have, I don't think you can risk having a guy in Lincoln Kienholz who may not be able to do that snap after snap, who might miss a throw here or there. I just think it's a no-brainer that you start Julian Sayin. But the running back room, you lose Judkins, you lose Henderson. Now you've got C.J. Donaldson transferring in from West Virginia, a big physical back, very solid player. You have James Peoples, another really solid player going into another year at Ohio State. Pretty good 1-2 punch. Obviously Judkins and Henderson were at an elite level, to say the least. It was very, very difficult for defenses to really do much against them when they got in open space with their speed and their power and their elusiveness. But I think Donaldson and Peoples are going to be a really solid 1-2 punch. The receiving room, we could spend 30 minutes just talking about all the guys they have in there, but obviously everyone knows the best player in college football, Jeremiah Smith, going into his second year, would have been a top 5 pick as a true freshman if he were eligible to declare for the draft. Obviously, he can't do that until he's finished 3 years in college. Kid's a beast. Is Texas going to do what they did last year, where they're bracketing him all game long and just saying, anybody else, feel free to go make a play, but we're not going to let this guy do anything? Carnell Tate also in that room, heading into year 3 for him. A guy who I don't think gets talked about enough, just with, in the last couple of years, having Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, and then Jeremiah Smith exploding onto the scene. Carnell Tate is a really solid receiver and would be wide receiver 1 at 98% of other college football programs. And then you also have Brandon Inniss in that room, who is going to be another starter and is really going to be looking to make a name for himself this year, getting a lot more snaps. The tight end room, Max Clare comes in from Purdue, probably the best receiving tight end in college football this year. Very fast, great hands, great route runner. Going to expect him to be very effective for this offense and a go-to guy for Sayin in difficult spots. And then you also have Will Kaczmarek, more of a blocking tight end, but has shown the ability to go out and get the ball. Really like that 1-2 punch at tight end for Ohio State. And I also know you've got Jelani Thurman, who is a physically imposing tight end and a guy that is just an athletic freak. The offensive line, this is a unit where technically they lost 4 starters from a year ago with Seth McLaughlin gone, with Donovan Jackson gone, with Josh Simmons gone, and with Josh Fryer gone. But McLaughlin got hurt, Simmons got hurt, and so you had to put new guys in and rotate and, change things up. So this isn't really an offensive line that's 4 new starters, quote unquote. Carson Hinsman has played a lot of ball, starting center. Luke Montgomery at guard played all of the end of the year. Tegra Shabola was a starter all of last year. You've got Austin Saraveld out there at tackle. And for some reason, I'm blanking on the name at the moment. Onianwa, I want to say. The transfer from Rice is going to be your starter at tackle as well with Saraveld. So it's a really solid offensive line, and it's not this, we've got 4 new starters. Like, you've got guys who have played. Rice transfer, started there. Saraveld has started games. Montgomery started games. Hinsman started games. And then obviously Shabola was a starter all of last season. So I feel a lot better about this offensive line than maybe a lot of the people who kind of just paint broad strokes covering the sport, where it's, Ohio State's got to replace all these guys. Well, not really, because they have a lot of guys who have played a lot of snaps. Going to the Texas defense, this defensive line, sort of similar to Ohio State's, where I'm not exactly sure what they have on the interior. I know they get Cole Brevard from Purdue to transfer in. I know they've got Travis Shaw transferring in from North Carolina. Hiro Kanu transferred in from Ohio State. Alex January going into his sophomore year. Like, it's not that they don't have guys. It's just how well are they going to mesh and how well are they going to play their first year in this program. Travis Shaw, 6'5", 330. Cole Brevard, 6'3", 330. Like, they've got monsters, but are they going to be able to play at the standard and at the level that they need to? The edge room, you have Trey Moore coming back for his 5th season. Ethan Burke, really great player. And then Colin Simmons, who absolutely lit it up as a true freshman. Just a speed demon off the edge, giving problems to offensive lines every single game, every single time he would take a defensive snap. Really, really solid room there for Texas. Go to the linebacking room. Anthony Hill Jr., one of the best defensive players in the country, going into his 3rd year of college ball, 6'3", 235, gonna be a first-round draft pick, and the heart and soul, in my mind, of that defense. And then Liana Lifau, hope I pronounced that right, but he's going into his junior year as well, 6'1", 225. The secondary, you lose Makuba at safety to the NFL draft. You lose Jahdae Barron to the NFL draft, but you still have a lot of really solid players. You have Michael Taff at safety, a leader for the team, 5th-year senior, who his plan was, we're going to win the national title. I'm going to declare for the draft and start my NFL career. They lose to Ohio State in the semifinal, and he said that was the reason he came back, because they lost that game. His plan was they win the title, he goes to the NFL. Lose that game, he's got to come back for another year so that they can win the title and he can end his career at Texas on a happier note. You also have Jelani McDonald there at safety, Jalen Gilbo at sort of that nickel spot, and then Malik Muhammad and Kobe Black at corner. Kobe Black gives them a little bit more size at corner. Muhammad and Gilbo both about 5'11", 6 foot. Kobe Black about 6'2", 200-plus pounds. And then you also have Derek Williams Jr. at safety, another bigger secondary player at 6'2", 200-plus pounds. What I expect Texas to do is have a very similar game plan to the Cotton Bowl, where you're going to take Jeremiah Smith out of it, and you're going to say, make Carnell Tate beat us, make Max Clare beat us, run the ball effectively against our front, because we're going to give you an even front. We're not going to stack the box. If you want to run the ball, that's fine, but we're not going to let you beat us over the top for a 75-yard touchdown because Jeremiah Smith made our corner miss and our safety couldn't catch him. My overall thoughts on the game, I think Texas is going to come in pretty angry from a year ago, and they're going to come out swinging. I'd expect them to try to assert the run game, assert dominance through the run game early on, and to really try to pound the rock with Baxter and Wisner behind that offensive line and test the toughness and the depth of that Ohio State defensive line. And then for Ohio State, I think Ryan Day's just going to come out and do what he always does, throw that thing around the yard, get it to Jeremiah Smith, get it to Carnell Tate. They start taking away your receivers. You have Max Clare. Test the run game, see what your offensive line can get you. Because, again, I do think Ohio State's offensive line is going to be a lot better than what a lot of people are expecting. But I can't wait for this game. Going to be an incredible one. Two of, if not the two best teams heading into the season. I know obviously Penn State's loaded, Clemson's loaded. You have a handful of other teams that are incredibly talented. Just a heck of a way to kick off the year.